Welcome, everyone. This is yet another episode of Disruption Talks, and today we will be talking about a sweet little thing called insurance. To be honest, myself, given my young age, I am still ahead of considerably thinking about insurance as a part of my life for my place, for my car, for my belongings myself. But, well, increasingly, as I grow up, these things come my way. And much like most of you probably didn't love your bank, but have grown to love your Revolut account, the same thing between the incumbents and neobanks is happening in the insurance space. So against the typical company that does your insurance that you might have heard from your parents or you might have seen on some skyscrapers, there are many new players in the insurtech space. One of them is Getsafe. And today, joining us is Konrad and Anthony from Getsafe. Hi, guys.
Hi there.
I think I could say to the audience that Anthony is the VP of engineering, Konrad is the VP of product and data, but I think it's best if you just give us your own introductions. So, Anthony, could you start?
Sure, happy to. Hi, yeah. I'm Anthony Meyer, as you already said, VP of engineering here at Getsafe. I've been with the company now since October. Based here in Heidelberg, in the surrounding area. Before Getsafe, I actually worked mostly for Silicon Valley-based companies. I spent a few years working remotely from Germany for a company called Nextroll in the marketing tech space, and before that for Yelp. And I used to live over there. I'm originally from Germany, which is why a couple of years ago I decided to move back from the US over here, and was happy working for American startups. And then about a year ago, I got to meet some people from Getsafe and realized there's some really exciting opportunities in the space, and it was great to see a real tech startup building up in my home area. So I had to jump on board. I had to take the chance, and been super happy so far these last 9 months. Yeah. And when I'm not working, I'm generally spending time with my wife and my dogs, doing a lot of hiking and that kind of thing. So
Hiking is all we got with this no traveling space, right?
yeah,
So, Konrad, what about you? What's your elevator pitch?
Yeah, happy to be here. So I'm Konrad. I joined Getsafe 1.5 years ago, roughly, taking over the data team back then, and then also took over the product lead around half a year ago. And it might seem a bit weird that I have those two roles, but actually looking at my background, it's kind of obvious, as I've been graduating from physics and math, and then kind of spent my whole professional life in between strategy consulting with a big focus on digital products, product management, and digital business models, and data science. So I've also been like a data science freelancer in between, founded like a small company with friends as well. So I've always been in between roles, right? And now I'm living kind of the perfect role that I'm having at Getsafe, suiting me very well. And I hope Getsafe as well, of course. And if not working, I do have a wife and 3 kids. So that pretty much defines what I do in my spare time, taking care of them, spending time with them. I love traveling. I love doing sports. That's it.
Okay. No wife, no kids. Everything's going to happen in the future here. But bear with me. But back to Getsafe. I'm curious, what does a day in the life look for you guys like? And other than just hearing your personal answers, Konrad, maybe since you were just talking, you could tell us first, and then Anthony would go about what's a day of the life at Getsafe at your position like. And then the next question is going to be, how do you guys collaborate?
Sure. So my day is usually full of one-on-ones, right? So I love to spend time with my direct reports and team members, discussing any kind of issues they have, helping them to overcome them, or brainstorming together. Then big part of my day, it always comes in waves, but it's a big part is hiring, actually, as we grow very fast. So it's always like super important to stay ahead of time and try to hire for basically a team in 6 months. That's a challenge, but I really love it. Then a big part of my time is strategic planning, right? So most of our teams are really focused so we work with the OKR framework, setting goals on a 3-month time scale, and especially Ant and me are always trying to look a bit like further ahead, trying to anticipate what might come and trying to plan ahead. And then there's a big part in just talking to other VPs, other heads from lots of other departments, a lot trying to understand the vibes and any kind of things that we need to align on, not only within product engineering, but within the whole company, right? And trying then to foster that.
Okay.
That's it.
Anthony?
And sometimes, maybe to add, sometimes if there's some time left, I try to think about topics myself. Need to block that actively.
Yeah, I know that feeling. But yeah, for me, a lot of, well, first of all, it's nice after a long time working from home. We are finally kind of started to be in more of a hybrid setup where we're back in the office a little bit. So it's been great to actually get to collaborate with some people in person again, slowly but surely. But yeah, a lot of my day is spent with my team. Our engineering team is broken up into kind of a squad model, and currently I'm still actively involved with leading a few of those. Partially as we scale up, it's just kind of necessary to support the team, and partially it gives me a chance to be a little closer to the team. So part of my day is spent in stand-ups or plannings, depending on the day of the week. And making sure things are going smoothly for the team, the projects are going well, make sure if they are blocked by anything, going to figure out what's going on with other departments or see what we can get moved along. A lot of my day is also spent in one-on-ones, both within my team, making sure everything's working for everybody on the team. What are their what are their ambitions? Where do they want to grow in their career? Trying to make sure they can move forward, and then seeing where we can push our technology forward and look for those new opportunities, and making sure to kind of pull ideas out of individuals as well wherever possible, and then also a lot of one-on-ones with kind of other departments, and then a lot of what I care about and focus on is just that the processes are running smoothly, right? That both the way my team works, but also the way we work closely with product and design and other departments, that's all going well, and seeing, are there any adjustments we need to make to how those things are working. Often a lot of my day is spent in meetings with Konrad, so he and I talk probably depending on the day. Occasionally there's a day where we realize we had no meetings together, but I think it's not uncommon for us to have 2 or 3 hours of meetings together in a day. So we try to work very closely together. So strategic planning is something I'm directly involved in as well. So we can make sure we're in lockstep and also planning ahead. So.
Okay, so when you're not in a marathon on one-on-ones, you spend time collaborating, and then anyway, you still end up on an interview together on a public one-on-one or a 2-on-1 essentially. So just can't escape, can you?
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing that I'm thinking is the prior experience that you guys mentioned, your respective prior experiences, how that impacts how you're leading the teams at Getsafe. Strong software engineering on Anthony's side, of course, strong consulting background of Konrad. I'm just curious how those things transfer from, for example, I heard Yelp. So we're talking, one of the, let's say, OGs of the tech startup world. So I'm curious how the learnings from places like that and your respective paths carry on to 2021 VPs at Getsafe.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to start. I think Getsafe is now the 4th or 5th, depending on how you count it, startup tech company, startup/tech company I've worked at. And I've tried to kind of along the way always grow and learn, with the processes, and both where I can learn something new from the team or the processes in place, but also where can I bring something along the way. So for a long time I was myself an engineer, but for the last now 5 years I've been leading or managing teams often. So it's a lot of my focus has been on making sure things are going smoothly. I've had some great mentors along the way who've helped me with those processes. But yeah, a lot of what I did when I got to Getsafe was say, hey, what's working really well here, right? What are kind of the core of the team, where collaboration is super strong. Everybody wants to work very closely together, which is great. Love to see that. And working, trying to get to quick decisions, moving quickly as we grow fast. But then also trying to bring in some more standard processes, right, that will help us scale better, and kind of more smoothly, right? As a startup is kind of in small mode, it's often organized chaos, and now I'm trying to make it a little more organization. So one of the first things I did when I got to Getsafe was bring in more standards, like make sure all teams, all the engineering teams were doing stand-ups and involving product managers with those, and doing plannings. We do 1 week sprints, so we have a weekly planning. Also trying to make sure we had a standard project management tool. Before it was, some people were using Asana, a little bit of Jira, a little bit of Trello, a little bit of Google Docs. So trying to bring that in place, and and a lot of that kind of ended up bleeding over, I think, a little bit to the product organization and kind of other bits. So, but I'd let Konrad talk about that a bit as well.
Yeah, sure. So maybe first of all, from my background, I have a strong background in consulting, and this is typically, I'd say, or has been, still is, I guess, a quite hierarchical kind of leadership that you experience there. And I found it very valuable to experience that, because I think it clearly got me to see the pros and cons of it. And I think it works quite well to have those strong hierarchies whenever there's kind of a clear and proven path to success. Right, so it's basically, you have some best practices. You did this project before. It's like 3-month defined scope, and just go ahead and execute. I think there it works quite well. But I also saw, especially from basically what I consulted in, that as soon as you go in the space of not specifically knowing what will bring you to success, and where you need really bright ideas, right, and you need to explore a lot to get to those and to prove them right, then this won't work, right? And I experienced it myself a lot. So I think it shaped my leadership style quite a lot, as I truly believe that within that space where creativity, exploration is needed, new ideas are needed, there's no proven path. It's all about creating, giving a strong purpose, first of all, giving people a strong purpose, creating a high alignment through common goals and clear goals, but then also giving the autonomy to basically work autonomously in their teams, given certain, of course, principles and certain rules, right? And that's what I think would describe kind of the learning that I got, that this, for me, works, and what I believe in, right, works best. And that's also how we, what Anthony basically described, that's also how we set up our teams. So we work in really autonomous squads, right, covering the whole value chain of insurance in the end. So we have multiple squads, each squad consisting of a product manager, a designer, a data person, and of course, a couple of engineers. And they are autonomously working on a specific field within the product and have full responsibility there, right? And doing that, we can make sure that Anthony and me, we align with the teams on the direction, the goals, and some rules. But then we let them run themselves and let them also take decision themselves, right? Which really works well.
Okay, I have to warn you. At the end of this, there will be a non-technical question where I'll ask you for the advice for
Cool.
other VPs and other people who are in the position to lead. So that, but we always start with the personal prism to get the audience familiar with you. But let's dive right into the company prism and talk about the product. So
Cool.
I wanted to ask you what's the latest with Getsafe, how was 2020, 2021 is, and how will 2022 be? But phrasing that in a product question context, are there any new product features that you can, tease a little bit? And if not, maybe talk about some of the exciting engineering or data challenges that you have already worked on that you can discuss. Ideally,
I
both.
Yeah, cool. Maybe I can do the intro. So, right now we're basically putting lots of transaction that customers do with an insurance company into the app, right? So we're really doubling down on using our app, our digital product, as basically the channel and the tool that the customer can use at their fingertips. There are lots of smaller use cases in there, but I think the biggest thing that we started to tackle, and lots of exciting things will soon follow, is claims. So we started putting the whole claims experience, claim status tracker, soon more into the app. And I think Anthony wanted to talk about it anyway, right?
Yeah, I mention that a little bit, but I totally agree with Konrad. Claims is one of the areas where we're trying to really push ahead. I think the whole reason people have an insurance product is that unfortunately things happen, and when they do, we want to be there to help them. That's why they file a claim, then tell us what happened, and it's a confusing process for a lot of people, and it's hard, and we want to make it really easy, right? We want to make it fast. We want to make it easy. So we've always had the ability, or not always, but for a long time, Getsafe's already had the ability to actually file your claim through the app. But then often, just because of the nature of insurance and how these things get processed, people had to be involved, and they still are. They're in the background, but we're trying to make it easier for customers to manage everything in the app, like Conrad said. One of the things we're starting to look at, nothing we can quite talk about fully, but it's like, how can we make it even faster and maybe more automated, to start making some decisions around whether your claim is accepted or not, so that customers can get their answers, maybe even instantly in the future. But we'll have to kind of see how that goes, and a lot of it's kind of dependent on the insurance products themselves.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, sorry, go.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most exciting parts for me in insurance. It's in the end the kind of the feature is super simple for the customer, right? You file a claim, you answer some questions, you click a button, and you get an answer very quickly. But actually, the complexity to handle in the back is super large, right? And there's lots of cool tech systems and data science problems behind that we need to solve. And for me, that's one of the big exciting challenges, like trying to get this complexity of insurance down to like a simple button and this one simple click, right? In the end, that's one of the fun parts.
That's exactly what you heard me talking about in the beginning, because I like to occasionally think of myself as a mature, reasonable person. I'm 26, I have a job, I'm doing these interviews every week, but still I should have insurance, just on lock, but I don't. And one of the reasons when I think about it is that, well, lo and behold, I'm human like everybody else, and I operate on things like fear of the unknown. I am not familiar with everything in the insurance industry. I don't want to be familiar with all the things in the insurance. I just want to be protected. I just want to be insured, but I don't really want to be figuring out all of those things and overcome this high barrier of entry. So simplification is the overarching trend of whatever is happening, right?
Totally.
So any advice on building such high performing engineering and product teams?
We touched on some of it a little bit, earlier, right? Like, one of the things we really try to do is, we're hiring smart people. We want to give them the chance to, work independently, show what they've got. It doesn't help us to tell them exactly what to do, right? So as Conrad mentioned, we try to make sure there's a solid structure, and clear goals and a roadmap of where we want to go, and then let them operate independently. Not only does it give them more ownership, give them the drive to actually find the best solutions and stuff for themselves, not just it's not just being dictated to the top from the top, go build it exactly this way, but it also allows us to scale better, right? Because if we can have a bunch of independent teams working in side by side, right, towards a common goal, and collaborating with each other, of course, as well. And kind of one of the things I look for there, right, in terms of kind of when we talk about rules and processes and stuff, is making sure each of the squads are kind of holding themselves accountable, right? That they're being ambitious, they're working towards solving the big problems we're putting in front of them, but they're also willing to kind of be honest and reflective on what are the things that are going well, what are the things that often aren't going well and need to be smoothed out, right? So one of the things I really look for is when a squad commits to some number of tasks for a sprint, right, that they're holding themselves to that. And that's not me holding them to that, right? That's them holding themselves to it, right? And then they can understand kind of what they're trying to get done. That helps. One of the things that happens from that, which is great, is the teams start thinking more iteratively, and which is good in terms of breaking up tasks and breaking down work and being able to estimate a little bit better. But it also ends up often being better for the customer, because they can then take a big problem and see, hey, how can we maybe deliver value in the next week, right? Rather than how can we deliver value over the next 3 months, right? And continue to add a little bit of value bit by bit, iteratively, and ends up being great because, like I said, we get more consistency, we get more better kind of estimates and stuff, but also our customers start seeing something of use quickly, and we can start getting feedback as well. So, yeah.
I think that draws the fine line between execution and actual delivery. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
describe it.
absolutely. And I think that's something where often, even really high performing engineers struggle with, right? They're working on something, right? But it's like, oh, well, I need to get it perfect before it ships out the door and stuff, right? And, working with them and saying, hey, yeah, of course, perfect is what's perfect, right? But let's see, can we get, something good in front of the customer, right? Can we make the customer's lives better this week than it was last week, right?
Yeah, so we invite all engineering managers or engineers themselves to be a little philosophical in their line of work and always ask, why am I doing this? What for? So, Konrad, any take of yours on this from the product and data, or would you just agree one-on-one with Anthony?
I like 100% agree with Anthony. Maybe the only thing I'd like to add is, we're also trying to always pair up people in teams that have diverse skills, right? So not everyone can have kind of every skill. So we're trying to pair people, as I said, to maximize kind of diversity, also in skills, because it then helps to kind of get the right balance between being very detail oriented and strict and perfect, but also trying to go fast and explore things, right? It's also often like a personal matter, preference of style, and we're trying to mix up right people in right teams.
Okay. And just so we frame this abstract concept, because we're talking about squads, about how to manage people. If LinkedIn is to be trusted, it tells me that there's 110 people at Getsafe. I'm guessing more or less it's a verified number. Please nod if it's that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Those squads that you mentioned, of the product manager, the designer, how many squads are there in total?
Yeah, so currently we have five squads, and they vary in size. I think the smallest is 3 engineers with the lead, and the largest, I think at the moment, which is a little too big actually, but is about 7 engineers. So.
Okay, and if I may ask, out of personal curiosity, when you say too big, at what point does that sort of light up as the red light of warning for you? That
Yeah, absolutely, totally fair question. And this kind of goes back to, the earlier question and kind of what I've learned at past companies and what I've tried to bring along. And the magic number I've kind of found is 3 to 5 engineers working on a specific problem set. But that also in our, it's always just based on the people you've got and the leadership you have at different levels, right? So in our case, it's we have a little bit of a larger problem space that's very interconnected right now, where we're trying to figure out over time, and that kind of goes into some of the strategic things we're always discussing, is how can we try to break up both the product problems a little bit to make them a little bit more independent, but also the technology, right, to make it a little bit more independent, so that we could actually let maybe break this slightly larger squad into 2 squads, working independently, but towards the larger goals. So, but yeah, so about everything over 5 engineers is kind of where it starts itching at the back of my head and says, okay, we need to figure out what do we need to do overall to make it so we could break this down a little bit more.
And I think like we also use this type kind of to decide how to scale the squad notion, right? So we don't think of adding like single engineers, single designers, but more like where can we add a new squad taking over a subtopic, splitting up topics, right? Which makes it way easier in the end to scale from my point of view, and then also to explain to people like what are you responsible for, right? Which then on the other end adds again to having a high alignment and being able to give them autonomy, right, on what they do.
That makes complete sense. I really like it. That scaling, of course, you can just drop more engineers and have a more tired and higher backlog team of engineers. But this makes a lot of sense. Is there any scenario in which this doesn't work, or is this just like something that's the clean, hygienic standard of development in 2021, and anybody who's not following this is just like legacy or lagging?
Well, I don't know if anybody's not following this legacy or lagging. I mean, I know there are other models, holacracy and different things, which I think are out of trend now too. But where there's like no direct leadership and stuff. But I mean, generally, I found this model to work very effectively everywhere I've worked, and whenever we've tried to kind of go away from it, we end up at something kind of similar to it. So it's definitely the model I would recommend for basically every tech company. So
yeah, I think it also, especially as I said, like the path to success is not clear, so strategy might change a bit, and it gives us like lots of flexibility, like going deeper into the value chain, like splitting up horizontally or splitting up vertically topics as we need them, while finding out what the best way to in the end scale is, right?
Yeah, and that's super critical, going to whether everyone should use this or not, right? It's not something where you just set a squad and forget and you never reevaluate, right? Like it's important that you don't want to constantly be shifting the squads around every week. That defeats the point. But where every quarter or 2 you should be evaluating, say, hey, is this still the right setup? Do we need to shift anything around? Do we need to split? Do we need to maybe this is not as big of a problem as it used to be. Maybe this squad does need to exist and we need to make a different one instead, right? But that's important to be looking at. But if you're doing that, then this kind of consistently works.
Solid answer. And Konrad, I have to warn you, it's a little bit of grilling time.
Nice.
It's a little bit of grilling time because you have data in your job description. So I have to give Anthony a breather over here, and I have to ask you because I'm looking through my notes who it was that I actually spoke from Getsafe on LinkedIn. I think it was Kieran from Kieran, who is leveraging data science in insurtech, and we had an exchange about how currently machine learning. It was about the post why we have a dedicated data platform at Getsafe, and I asked Kieran if there are any cases in which he would recommend against having a dedicated data platform in this space. So I won't even just like read it out to you. I'm curious, Konrad, what you had to say, because right now it was said that the current use case is too simple to necessitate machine learning per se in the way that I asked for it. But Kieran did make the remark, and this works for me, that with the complex analyses and the expansion and between more pipelines and everything, then that makes sense. However, and this is coming from a technologically ignorant person more than less. So give me the benefit of the doubt when I ask you to explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. Machine learning loves data. Data loves hygiene, and having some data from as far as you can go is cool, and the machine learning part will love it. So is it a healthy approach to just, even if you're trying to use machine learning way in the future, or you even don't know if you will, but still having this data hygiene and preparing for that? Because the fact that you don't need it now doesn't mean that you don't have to start preparing for when you will.
Sure. I agree to you, but I don't think it contradicts each other. I think in the end, you need to find a healthy balance between collecting everything and collecting it in a clean way and not spending too much time on it if you don't know if it will provide value in the future, right? I think fortunately, nowadays, there are all the tools out there that do major parts of the job for you, so you don't have to care that much about it, right? And I think like the blog post, everyone should read it, is about that we introduced Databricks as our data platform, which makes it super easy basically to collect any kind of data in any format basically on one platform. And so it's super easy. It's kind of plug and play, and then we can later on see what kind of data provides value, and then further refine it,
Okay.
And to the use of machine learning, I think I'm always a fan of always coming from the user problem or the business problem, and really always making sure that we're solving something real. I think this is even more important as we're a startup and do not have unlimited funds like maybe some large corporates seem to have, right? So we're not just throwing away money and playing around, but we do real business. So it's super important to always have it clear what kind of problem are we solving, what kind of impact does it have, and what's the best solution to it, right? And sometimes we need like 100% solution. Sometimes we need 80% solution based on that kind of level of ambition that we have or quality we have. We need to find the right tools. If it's machine learning, it's machine learning. If it's a set of simple statistics or rules, it's that, right? So I would never just go for machine learning just for the sake of doing it.
Okay, fair response. The 5-year-old in me is smarter right now, and I understand the answer that you gave to me. And you mentioned that you're a startup with limited funds, but looking at the way that the market is sharing money with the interesting startups, you are an interesting startup. You are in a very interesting space. I'm sure that at no point will you not be of the interest of investors, probably oversubscribed with every round. So I think that we have talked a lot about Getsafe, but I would like to expand this into the industry space so we can speak about the entire area and ecosystem. And I'm curious because it feels, at least for me, like sometimes we are reaching a ceiling, and I'm hoping that you can tell me why it is a glass ceiling that we will easily break through. Because, for example, if I'm thinking about neobanks, okay, you have given me the ability to day trade. You have given me the ability to issue one-time cards. You have given me the ability to exchange currencies. And it's difficult to figure out what could be done next. And likewise, the question here for insurtech is, okay, sure, the race is for smarter evaluation, faster resolution of issues. What is the sort of breakthrough? What is the prediction for the next big thing in insurtech, or anything that leads to that?
Like, if I may, first of all, I think we're not even there yet at the level that you described. So I think we're kind of lagging behind neobanks quite a few years. So we've not yet had that breakthrough. And of course, we want to be part of that, leading part of that. So I don't think yet that there is someone out there who provides the perfect digital experience in insurance. We're trying to do it. We're not there yet, but we're doing our best, right? And I'm confident that we can be it. And beyond that, I think for insurance, there's a whole ecosystem of interesting services and directions that the whole thing could go then, right? Which is might be all around, providing on-demand and super personalized coverage for things you want to do, going more to the maybe B2B space, and or adding a whole ecosystem of preventive, like prevention, risk prevention, which will add another whole dimension of alignment between the user in the end and the company, as if both are trying to prevent risk, it's the best that can happen, right? And I think as well there, no one really cracked it yet, and it's definitely one topic of the future.
Okay, Anthony.
I think Konrad covered all the things I would probably talk about. I think he touched on a very interesting there, right? Is coming back to the data topic, right? As we understand, as we have more data, as we know, what are the things customers are looking for? What are the things that they actually end up filing claims for? What are maybe the things that their claim gets rejected for because it's actually not covered, or they didn't understand their policy, or something like that, right? Over time, we can use that data to provide kind of exactly the right coverage for users without them actually thinking about it, right? And I think you already see this in small things, right? You go on Amazon and buy a larger item, and it says right there, hey, do you want to add the extended warranty, right? I mean, that's basically a form of insurance, right? It's just you don't think about it that way. And sure. At one point, we can make sure this is just kind of embedded in everything you do, and it shouldn't be crazy expensive. It should be cost effective, but so the things you want, are covered. And as life happens, it's just that things work, and if something breaks, we can help you take care of it. So,
okay. Listening to you, I started thinking, I'm curious if there's ever going to be a product where I can just like temporarily buy insurance. Let's say I'm skiing and I see, okay, this is a difficult one. I whip out my phone, say I want to be insured for the following, let's say 30 minutes from this and that in grave danger while skiing. So
I think we might get to that point, but it might cost you a bit to do it.
Absolutely, that's the premium.
Yeah, but we'd have to understand.
I want it right now. I haven't thought about this before. I'm paying the tax for.
It's an interesting idea, right? We connect to whatever fitness tracker knows how well you ski, and then based on that, we can analyze, the run. It's definitely a possibility, and I mean, I think it's not that far fetched, and one of the things Getsafe already has, right, is we have daily cancellation of your insurance policy, which is something most of our competitors don't. It's not something they could ever dream of, right? And because we can use technology to assess the risk level of our customers, they come on, we can afford to do that and allow customers to. We don't have to lock you in for a year at a time. So it's definitely something that could be in the future. Yeah.
I'll be looking forward. If anybody steals this idea, please at least credit me. So here first. So, I mean, I didn't mean specifically you, but if you intend on stealing it, then let's talk after. Jokes aside, I'm curious about whether what I mentioned, the question that I asked, the ML, the artificial intelligence, is that something that's too much thrown around? Is that a buzzword, especially in the insurtech space? Like, do you get this question like I gave you a lot?
Yeah, I think Konrad already touched on some of it. I don't think it's just a buzzword. I don't think it's thrown around. But I think too often these days people grab for machine learning earlier than they need to, right? It definitely has great uses, and especially as you have a lot of data, but there's still a lot you can do with some decent rule-based systems and provide a lot of value to your customers, and you're not fighting the machine learning systems along the way. But it's absolutely something we're starting to use, and will be a critical aspect of what we do in the future. And I think as you get more into real time and other things, it gets more interesting, right? I think one of the things about insurance is there's a lot happening, but it's also not necessarily real time yet. So some of that matters a little bit less. But over time, it's absolutely something that will be a part of what we do. And I think most insurance companies, and I think most businesses to some level, even if maybe you're not directly building your own machine learning algorithm and you're using a tool that does it for you or something. For us, we'll definitely be building our own. But yeah, so I don't think it's just hype. I don't think it's just a buzzword. I think it's, but I do think it's people grab for it too quickly.
I'd maybe add to that. Totally agree to Anthony. And for me, it's again, like user and business problem needs to come first, right? And then what we're seeing is, especially in the data space, is kind of a SaaSification of everything, which is pretty cool. So for me, it's not that big of a topic whether to use ML or not in the future. We do have smart people who know to, within a few hours, set up any kind of ML algorithm, right? Train it and deploy it as an API. The tools are there. And then we can just try it out, right? If it works better than any kind of other rule. So I would vote for rather being kind of agnostic in the end what to use, but having the skills, team people and skills on board to easily just use whatever we want.
Okay, solid response. So now I have one thing to throw Anthony's way, one thing to throw Konrad's way, and then we will be wrapping up with just some non-technical questions. So our team has researched this this piece of text. I'll keep it short. Essentially, the question that I will be asking you is this the thing that is making the incumbent the incumbent? Essentially, is this why the typical insurance companies are not catching up as fast as the neo insurers? And the piece of text tells me this, that a few years back, the incumbent's response to the legacy problem was to move to ERP-type process platforms, which were supposed to be somehow hedging against the future. Apparently, it didn't work. And back in those decisions, CIOs, CTOs, IT departments weren't really placed in a position of a decision maker or someone who could be telling, yes, great idea, no, terrible idea. So is that the thing that you think is the key sort of bottleneck for incumbents moving to this position, where in Getsafe or any other insurtech that we're hearing about on TechCrunch or Sifted, they just understand that tech is as important as, for example, the legal framework of insurance, right? Would this be the thing, the only thing? Are there any other things that are creating this, gap for typical insurance companies to catch up?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a critical thing. I don't think it's the only thing. Yeah, we absolutely have an advantage in the fact that technology is just ingrained into everything we do, right? Every decision we make is based on, what can our platform do? What do we need to keep adding to it? How do we, what can our app do, et cetera? That's how we make decisions, right? It's important. And, one of our co-founders is our CTO, right? So, from day one, it's been important, right? It's not something that got tacked on at some point. We've always been a tech company. But I think there are kind of other large factors that's going to keep holding back incumbents for a while, which is just they have legacy IT systems, and some of them are really, really legacy. I mean, they're insurance companies that are hundreds of years old at this point, right? Their technology is not quite that old, but it's not uncommon to have technology systems that are 40 years old at this point, right? You can't just update those, and we have it ingrained into us to use modern technology and always to be innovating, right? We don't, if a tool or technology is no longer the right fit, we update it. It's not a huge deal. We just do it. But for the incumbents, they might need years to get new people and start updating their technologies, figure out how to get all the old stuff over, not lose things, right? That's going to slow you down. And that on top of the fact that, they're not even making technology first decisions, right? So that's just kind of such a mess of legacy holding them back and mindset that they almost can't catch up. Maybe they will at some point, but by then we'll be even further ahead, right?
Okay.
And I maybe add to that, next to Anthony was describing perfectly like the tools that we give, but again, it also comes down to processes, how we come to decisions, right? So in my background, I have been at large corporates in Germany all over, so I know decision making of like smaller things can take months and years, and for like various reasons, and also be able to, while scaling, still be fast, breaking things, learning fast, iterating. I think that's as well crucial next to just giving the technological tools that we need, right?
Moving fast, breaking things. That sounds dangerously close to the quote that I heard, that if you have everything under control, you're not moving fast enough, right? I think
Exactly.
Formula One driver.
Exactly.
So Konrad, first of all, the article that we discussed, the why we have a dedicated data platform, Getsafe, everybody in the audience, it's posted in the comments. So
Cool. Thanks.
And now a similar exercise just coming your way. Quote, insurance is about data, internal data, while being consolidated into smart new data models and architecture is just not enough for products of the future. Seamless integration with the external global data world is critical and is also a large challenge. And since you already mentioned, fitness tracker, I know that insurance companies, I have a good hunch what you're going to tell me, but let's see, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, so I totally agree. External data is critical to our business. But to be honest, fully honest, I don't see a specific challenge in it, because I also see that, as I said, like there's a certification of data providers all over. So there are plenty of opportunities to get the data they want in a modern format over API, and using a very modern tech stack on our own. I don't see a specific challenge in integrating it, right? It's rather, again, like deciding what to do, more than getting the right data in and doing the right things with it, rather than having a challenge in getting it. But I totally agree, it's crucial. And for me, the magic in the end happens somewhere between wrangling internal data and external data in the end, right? Because it gives a kind of a market view and it enriches internal data, but also the internal data gives a very good view on the user. And I think we have a super high competitive advantage in there as we digitize the whole value chain. So we kind of know about every touch point that the customer has with us and can use all of the data. We have it all in one place. So to be honest, it's rather easy for us to wrangle it with any kind of external data that we might add now, that we added or might add in the future.
Okay. Anthony, anything to add here?
I think that definitely covered a lot of it, right? We're always on the lookout for new opportunities, and I think this is going to continue to happen. And yeah, there's always going to be more data available, and I think it's important to assess whether it adds value, right? I think it's kind of like what we talked about earlier with machine learning stuff, right? It's easy to get distracted by things that maybe don't add anything. So just assessing appropriately. But yeah, the opportunities I think are becoming endless. I think it's more opportunities than challenges.
Fair point. Good situation to be in. Because when I think of this, I know that one Polish insurer, I think the largest Polish insurer, gives you a device that goes in your car that tracks your motion. It has a gyroscope, has an accelerator, so it knows, for example, when something all of a sudden stopped your car. I know that in the US there are insurance who are giving you an Apple Watch with the policy, so they can in turn see what's your sleeping habits, walking habits, whether you're a high risk, low risk, excellent kind of person. Do you know about any of those like cool next thing applications outside of the ones that I mentioned?
Yeah, there's starting to be stuff also with home insurance where you've got IoT devices and you're out monitoring water flow and different things with pipes to see if you've got a leak. That's one that I know is coming up. But there are lots of possibilities, and I think we don't even know yet. But I think especially when you see the large insurers doing this, it's I think at this point it's a great idea. It's definitely something we're going to embrace at one point as well. But my gut feeling is that the larger insurances are doing it more as a gimmick at the moment and to understand and to learn. They're really using it to make decisions. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are actually already making critical decisions off of it.
Let's see. Healthy competition is always good. So enough of the tech. Now, very personal, non-technical questions. Number one, and Konrad unfortunately already started answering this in a previous
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry.
Decision-making framework. What is the tip that you can share with other leaders how to improve decision-making? For example, the rule of thumb, let's say, do I like cake? Yes, cake is great. Is it great for me? Not in the amount that I would like to eat it. So a similar approach to a very simple decision-making framework. What helps you make a tough call or anything really that resonates with this question?
I can think of 2 points. And the first one is kind of a prerequisite for me. Without that, any kind of framework won't work. And that's having a good strategy and a good goal setting that you discussed, right? It's also a decision you made, but it's a very specific decision that you can then align on. You can write it down. You can discuss it with your teams. And then any further decision, more operational decision, is way easier. Basically to make, because you can also always refer back to your strategy and the goals that you set, right? So I mentioned we're using OKR framework, which is great. That really helps a lot, right? And it also enables, as I said, teams to take their decision on their own. So I love a world where I don't need to take decisions, but teams can take decisions on their own, and through alignment, we can make sure I would have decided the same, right? That's the perfect world, and we're striving for it. The second point is, I think what I learned, it's also something I learned in consulting, is the disagree and commit principle, right? It's get everyone, if there's a important decision get everyone in who's basically affected. Take your time really to discuss it and let everyone be heard. But then if you take a decision together, then you commit to it and not afterwards start saying, okay, this has not been the right decision. Why did we take this decision, etc.? Why? Because it will make you slow. It stops you down.
Okay. What was the name of disagree and commit?
Disagree and commit, yeah.
Cool.
First disagree, but then commit, right? And then there's no way back.
Okay.
But maybe Anthony.
We made it together, essentially, at some point.
Exactly.
Solid. So I'll research it. I haven't heard about this framework earlier. Anthony?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big things I'm always trying to look at is, I love this idea. I think it's from Jeff Bezos, kind of one-way door decisions versus two-way door decisions. So basically the idea is, one-way door, you make the decision, it's basically impossible to change it, right? Or it's incredibly expensive, right? Two-way door decision, you can go through it, if it doesn't work out, you change your mind, relatively low cost, right? So first thing I always try to do is, identify what kind of a decision we're dealing with here. Is it one-way or two-way? If it's two-way door decision, I try to make sure we make it quickly. I often try to give the opportunity to my team to make it, right? And let's see where we go from there. If it's a one-way door decision, then yeah, we need to spend a little more time discussing it in detail, getting people together, and going from there. So
okay. If it's any measure of wisdom and a correct answer, Anthony, our last week's guest, the current CTO of ChowNow, so ordering company, he spent almost 11 years at Amazon, and he shared a similar one-way, two-way door. So good on you. Definitely a good response. And now the magic wand question. So here are two remote magic wands that I have just handed into you, and you are supposed to wave it, and after abracadabra, every 12-year-old in the world will have access to some piece of education or will be taught that specific thing. We have heard emotional intelligence, design thinking, financial prudence, coding, of course, that comes a lot. And there's no right or wrong answer. I just want to hear why this is the answer that you give. Just make it yours for me. So, Konrad?
Sure. I tell them or educate them to stay curious and stay open-minded about whatever comes. It's very important, I think. And the second point I'd make is spend your time on relevant problems. But it's totally okay to have fun in between. That's my 2 points.
Anthony?
Yeah, I think probably making sure kind of everybody learns to understand and take the time to to understand if somebody's on the other side of an issue from you, to actually understand the reasoning behind it, the why, right? And I think this can be incredibly important in work context, right? I think too often people, I think we do a pretty good job of not doing this at Getsafe, right? But I think too often people just make the wrong assumptions and say, "Oh yeah, you're just wrong," right? Without understanding what your reasoning is, right? Because often you've got a specific explanation, you've got your own motivation, and when you can understand that, you can often come together to come up with a better solution. I think it's really important in work, but I think it's also something that can be really relevant in personal lives, and also when kind of understanding the larger world and maybe why people disagree with you on a political or cultural issue or something, where people are too often getting these no, only one side can be right. So.
Yeah.
And then the learning to code, I think everybody should learn to code.
You must say that.
I mean, even doctors have to. If you want to be a relevant doctor in 5-10 years time, well, you gotta. So essentially, know thyself. That would be it. And the good advice. It's a nice quote I heard. When in doubt, zoom out for some more self-awareness. Right.
Nice.
So
That's a great quote. Yeah.
so we can work with that. It's been a lovely 58 minutes. I have done all the questions that I had. Any finishing remarks? Any hiring announcements? Should all the developers listening to this just go on the careers page and go crazy?
We're
Yes,
hiring.
We are hiring a lot of people, front and back end
No.
engineers. Yes, please, if you want to be part of making insurance a lot better for people and for the future, please contact us. Come work at Getsafe. So.
And probably the same time zone that we are in. So anybody who's watching, don't be afraid of a -9 time zone or anything like that. Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much for today. It's been a blast. I really enjoyed it.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
It was
it's a
cool.
great
It was
chat.
fun.
And well, what else can I say? Dear audience, thank you for attending, and see you next week, like every Tuesday. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Ciao. Thanks.